All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the next episode of the Restoration Success Show. Not sure what episode number this is, but it's the next one. So hang in. We got a good one today. A friend of mine, an associate of mine, Lyn Askin. So let's start out, Lynn. Just tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of how you got into EOS.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun one. Let me tell you my story real quick. I'll just tell you kind of a quick, couple minute version of my story. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Had a paper route when I was 8 or 9. I grew up in a house of a lot of love, but not much money, and I think that made me entrepreneurial. If I wanted things, I had to buy them, and so I had to earn them, and so I had to have good jobs, and I did a lot of dirty jobs when I was a kid. But I paper out. I started a mobile disc jockey business in my teens. Started building computers for people in my 20s. In 1995, I built one of the first online auctions. Built my first e-commerce store in 96, 97, somewhere around there. And then just kind of got into helping other people, kind of navigate the online world and build websites for the people. And so over the next 20, 26 or so years, I built a pretty successful marketing agency. Um, but had probably the same challenges that everybody else had. Probably succeeding in spite of myself. We had maybe a lack of clear vision about who we were, who we served. Maybe a lackluster team commitment, probably because of a lack of that clear vision about where we were headed, and really just sort of a lack of discipline and accountability across the board. And so I don't know. Ultimately, that business was running me, and and me not running it. And so, but again, despite all of that, had a pretty successful business. But in 2020, it was October, Jamie. I got like the wake up call of all wake up calls. I had a massive bilateral pulmonary embolism, and what that means is my lungs got filled with blood clots from a blood clot down in my calf, and as I laid there dying, all I could think about was, oh my God, what kind of mess did I just leave for my wife and son? You see, if I'd have died that day, Jamie, my business would have died with me. My wife would have had to go to my office. She would have had to fire all of our team. She would have had to lose all of our clients and lock the door behind me. And that would have been my legacy, and that would have been her last memories of me is just cleaning up my giant mess. Because again, if I had died, my business would have died with me. And so I thank God I recovered, and I'm still here, but I knew that I needed to do something different, and I was on a mission to fix that, and I was on a mission to build something or build a business that would live without me and would run without me, and that my wife and my that I could pass on to my wife and my son, that they could sell if something bad happened to me. And honestly, that's when I found EOS. Listened to a bunch of podcasts. My first thought was like, oh my gosh, I got to sell this thing. This business is killing me. And I don't know if you know this or not, Jamie, but you can't sell a job. And so uh, my business wasn't sellable. Went on a mission to fix that. I found EOS. Tried to self-implement that and had maybe not such great results doing that. Hired a professional EOS implementer, brought him into our agency, and had a remarkable transformation. Over the next year and a half, we 3x'd our revenue, we 7x'd our profits, we grew from 10 employees to 27. And most importantly, Jamie, we were able to take myself out of the day-to-day operations. As you well know, we built a lot of websites and we did a lot of things, and I no longer had to touch those pieces of everything in every department. And I was able to kind of elevate myself into a real visionary role, which ultimately led to me, falling in love with this EOS process, becoming an EOS implementer, growing and scaling, and have a successful exit of my agency. And so for the last 2 years, I've been helping other businesses sort of achieve that dream that we once had when we first started our business. When we started our business, we were like, oh man, I'm gonna work for myself, and I'm gonna have all this freedom and all this time, and I'm gonna have money. And the truth is, it's not like that at all. But it can be, and it can be. And my mission is to help more businesses sort of get a grip on their business so you're running it and it's not running you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, appreciate that. And for everybody listening too, like this is more around business operations structuring with the ultimate goal to where you're kind of working on your business, above your business, not in it. And that's kind of everybody's dream, like you mentioned. And we find that, yeah, a lot, depending on what size revenue the restoration companies are, typically the larger ones have some of this figured out to some extent. But yeah, the smaller guys, like it's, I think it's also important to keep in mind, like this doesn't happen in 2 days, but it should be everybody's goal. I mean, not only to free up the time to work on what you want to work on, but we've had some clients, scale their restoration company up and then sell it. Having something like EOS in place, and the less involved the owner has to be, typically you can get a higher multiple when you go to sell, right? So what we're talking about today is important, and this can lead to many millions more if any of you guys or girls listening intend on selling eventually. So that's why, like, sometimes I think this stuff is, oh well, I don't need to figure out, an operating system, or this stuff's not important. There's millions on the line with stuff like this, and I will, I'll admit I didn't think about that when we were smaller and just getting going. But the longer you do business, you're like, man, this is almost everything to streamline and systemize everything. So let's kind of, for everybody listening, can you just kind of define EOS a little bit more and kind of like the 30,000-foot view of what it is and kind of how it works?
So EOS is a framework. And so when you start your business, I like to kind of, it's sort of jokingly say that you can operate your business on guesswork, hard work, or a framework. And a framework it's kind of a, just like it sounds, it's a framework on how to build a great vision, how to instill discipline, accountability. It's how to build a great team and all of those things. But EOS is really focused on, and I am focused on as an EOS implementer, helping you get better at three things. And that's vision, traction, and healthy. And by vision, I mean making sure that you and your leadership team are 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you're going to get there. Traction, I mean instilling discipline, accountability, so that no matter where you look in your company, you see people executing on that vision. And by healthy, I mean, I want to make you and your leadership team a more cohesive, functional, fun loving team that actually likes to work together. Because let's be honest, sometimes we don't. And the framework of EOS is really built around the concept that, all of us entrepreneurs are sort of built the same way. We're all kind of used to dealing with 136 simultaneous issues. We got just all these things just peppering us all the time, and we're sort of used to that. But the truth is, if you can strengthen just 6 key components of your business, you can take those 136 simultaneous issues. They'll just kind of fall into place, because what they really are is those are just symptoms of like a real root cause. And so we've gotten to the root of what it takes to build a great business. And I'll just talk you through those 6 key components really quickly. It's your vision component. Again, getting on the same page about where you're going and how you're going to get there. The people component. This is about, well, quite frankly, you're not going to achieve a great vision if you don't have great people. And then we move to the data component. And this is about operating your business on real facts and figures and numbers, and not emotions and that sort of just subjective decision making that we sometimes do. And then we move down to the issues component, because when your vision component strong and your people component strong and your data component strong, your business is going to become a little more transparent. And those issues and problems and challenges are just going to sort of start to jump out at you. And we need to teach you how to be really, really good at solving those issues as they arise, solving them at the root and making them go away forever. And then we move over to your process component. And this is about getting, the right stuff done the right way, or the most important stuff done the right way and the best way every time. And then we drop down into the traction component. Now, the traction component kind of sits at the bottom of the model. And there's no coincidence there, because if you can't bring your vision down to the ground and execute on it with discipline and accountability, we say that vision without traction is hallucination. And so EOS is a framework to run your business, how to run your meetings. It's one of those things that the system works. It's a handful of real world practical tools and disciplines. It's not magic beans. It's not silver bullets. There's no magic here. It's just simple, practical tools to help you get more stuff done.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for everybody listening, I don't know if we've said this yet, but EOS stands for the Entrepreneur Operating System. If anybody was curious about that. Yeah, no, I love that. That's, I mean, in each piece of that plays a huge role for sure, as far as, creating a machine, a well-oiled machine, right, is kind of the end goal. So part of EOS and the people component is, there's a visionary and there's an integrator. Can you kind of go a little deeper on what those are, and maybe next steps for people to figure out how they're wired?
Sure, there's a lot of great examples in history of great visionary integrator kind of duo combos that run companies. A lot of us, I think, when we start our businesses, we're visionary. We're like, hey, we're great at the big ideas, we're great at the big relationships, we're kind of big problem solvers, but maybe we're not so great at getting down into the nitty gritty. Maybe we're not so great at having tough conversations with our team. Maybe we're not so great at actually getting things done. If that's you, you're probably more of a visionary. And if that's the case, you probably need an integrator on your team. And the integrator is the person who holds this all together. They're kind of the glue that takes your leadership team and guides them through executing on the company vision. They're probably responsible for, the profit and loss of the company, and actually just executing on, I don't know, your vision as the visionary, or the vision that we've created together as a team. And so it's kind of the visionary integrator duo is kind of like the I don't want to use C-suite terms, but I don't know if it's the CEO, but it's the visionary guy at the top, and then there's that guy that helps get things done. Well, and guy or girl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, and you can call this stuff whatever you want, but I have it. Yeah, like there's a CEO, there's typically a COO. I mean, but really, it's kind of like, yeah, there's a leader, a visionary, and then there's kind of somebody in charge of ops, right? And keeping the machine going, getting the things done while the visionary's out there thinking forward, setting the vision, innovating, right? Like, and typically those are two completely different people.
They're just different skills.
Yeah.
Some of us are great at going to conferences and meeting people and bringing back good ideas and R&D, but then we bring all those ideas back and like, oh God, how am I getting all this stuff done? We're just not good at that. And so, some examples in history, obviously, like Walt Disney, visionary; Roy Disney, integrator; uh, Steve Jobs, visionary; Steve Wozniak is an integrator; Hewlett Packard. There's a bunch of those in history where you got this guy with this big idea and this big vision, or this woman with this big idea and this big vision. But sometimes you just need somebody else to help execute and to have a great company.
And
Now,
it could change everything, in my opinion. I
yeah,
mean,
well, there's
even for us, it was like night and day difference. Like I think, even if I were to start a new company or whatever right now, like I would be thinking about that day one, because you're gonna. I mean, like if you're trying to sit in both seats on the org chart or accountability chart and play both. Like, yes, you might have to do it for a little bit, but the sooner you can find that running mate, right? And it doesn't have to be a business partner. You don't have to go out and hire a COO. Like, it depends on what level you're at and all that. I mean, you can call it, it could be an ops trainer. I mean, it could start as an assistant, right? Like, I don't want everybody to think they have to go, hire $250,000 COO that it's coming from a Fortune 500 company. Like, there's levels to the game. And I think just having this in everybody's mind, I think it's kind of step one for that piece of it, right? It's just kind of like, all right, where am I at? Where do I need help? And
And
what
look,
am
there are people out there that can do both those jobs. There are people, there are companies in this world that have one visionary integrator that are just great at all of that. But that's not most of us.
Right.
There's an assessment online if you want to go to Rocket Fuel, rocketfueluniversity.com, go to the assessments. There's this crystallizer assessment that'll kind of tell you, are you more
Yeah.
visionary? Are you more integrator? And that's good to know, because then you can work around your limitations, and you can hire for your weaknesses. And I think that's a great plan.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, if everybody's wondering, yeah, they could go to that website and you can take. I think I've done that. It's been years, but I'm 100% a visionary, and I think I imagine, if I had to guess, there's some correlation between I mean, I recommend everybody go take that test, but I bet the Colby A test, I bet you could look at Colby's and probably get like, because mine matches up almost to a T. Um, have you seen correlation there as well on the Colby
Oh,
A
for
test?
sure. I think high fact finders are probably visionaries. The people with high follow through are probably integrators. Visionaries are probably high quick start. They're like, oh, let's do this thing, and then like, oh no, like I
Absolutely.
don't know how to do this thing. And so you can balance yourself out. My integrator, my company was like a almost the perfect opposite match for me. And when we grew and scaled, worked out really, really well.
Yeah, yeah, same here. It's actually most of the people on my team are quite opposite of me in a good way, right? It's like, hey, they help supplement my weaknesses. What so as companies go to implement this and get it going, like what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people run into or do as they're trying to implement EOS into their business?
I think the biggest mistake probably is to not fully commit to EOS. EOS is a full system. Now, I think the challenge is they're like, oh, I like parts of it and I want to change it. It's really a perfectly system run purely, and I think um, my job as an EOS implementer is to help you run this thing as pure as possible because everything is intentional. Every word's intentional. How we do things are very intentional. So I think maybe a lack of real commitment is one of the mistakes people make when they self implement. The other mistake they make is that visionary does all of the planning and kind of pushes it down on his team. And so instead of building your core values together, the visionary just says, hey, here's our core values, follow them, right? Here's our vision, follow it. It's really hard to get buy-in from your team when you don't build it together. But when you do build it together, when you build those core values together, when you build your mission together, when you build your vision together, you get buy-in from the team because they're a part of it. One of my favorite quotes that I heard recently, Jamie, is I'm gonna paraphrase it because the actual quote's a little more complicated than I want to make it here. But the quote is, the feeling of being heard and being loved are so similar, most people can't tell the difference. And when you make your team heard, when they're a part of that leadership team, when their voice is important and they get to help build this, they feel loved, you feel loved, and you can build a great team culture because you're doing it together.
Yeah, no, I agree to that. And a lot of people just want to feel like they have a purpose and their opinion matters and their job matters. And I think the way EOS is structured, it kind of like that's built into it. As sometimes we might think we have all the ideas, but sometimes when the people are closer to the actual work too, they can have great input. And just having a meeting agenda or a meeting structure to where people can say, hey, like, what if we made this change here, and just letting them know, like, you want that opinion. Like, it might be a great idea. Um,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value and a lot of team building, a lot of trust that happens when you allow people on your team to, or when you build a culture that people are willing to raise their hand and say, "Hey, we've got a problem here, we've got an issue, or here's something that I want to make better." And you're not just shutting them down, or you're not going, "Yeah, yeah, we'll get to that someday." When you're hearing them and you're I don't know. Imagine an employee coming to you and go, Jamie, we got this problem. You're like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then they come to you a couple weeks later. Hey, we still got the problem. You're like, yeah, yeah, I'll get to it. Hey, we still got the problem. Yeah, I'm not going to get to that right now. What happens next time when they have a problem? They're not going to bring it to you because they know that nothing's going to happen. So giving them sort of a system or a platform or a voice to help you improve your company is really powerful.
yeah, no, I agree to that. And you touched on this a second ago. I mean, you don't have to go too deep on it, but can you just touch on core values a little bit and how they kind of play into EOS and just company culture in general?
Sure. Well, we've all, I think we all know what core values are, and I think they're sometimes they're misused or overused, a little cliche. We're like, oh, our core values are integrity and honesty. And yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what are the what is the essential set of guiding principles that define who we are as a team and as a culture? What set of rules kind of defines how we act, how we behave, how we work, how we treat each other? And so, we do a really amazing core value exercise in EOS where we essentially we ask you like, who are your rock stars on your team, and who on your team, if we could clone them, if we could make 100 of them, we could just take over the world. And then we asked, like, okay, well, why did you list them? What are the qualities that you admire? What are the qualities that we admire as a leadership team? What are the adjectives that we'd use to describe that? And we take those and we kind of build them into a set of guiding principles that define how we behave as a team together. And it really defines who we are as a company. And when you do that as a team, it's so, so powerful. And then on top of that, we're going to teach you how to use your core values to hire, to fire, to review, to reward, and to recognize your employees. You know, you don't learn core values from a mug, and you don't learn them from a poster. You learn them from using them and talking about them, and actually incorporating them into your day-to-day routines.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love to admit this, but I think, depending when you're first getting going and you're starting, you kind of like, oh, I don't need to worry about my core values and all that. But the longer you're in business and the larger you get, you start being like, man, this is almost, it's imperative to get in place, because you want to attract the right people. And honestly, like what you put out in the world, like you also will start like attracting clients that align with your core values. I think that I'm learning, like that's huge on just to see how the relationships go, because it helps that alignment that we all want in business relationships, that alignment we all want in employee employer relationships. It's just like another way to kind of get everybody on the same page. And that kind of is one thing I think that helps build the culture overall of the company. Is it's kind of like when everybody's just jiving together, right? When the core value, and again, it's not perfect. It doesn't, but it's just one aspect I think that really helps.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you talked about the people component there for a minute, and really the core values. When we talk about the people component in EOS, we talk about right people in the right seats. Now, what are right people? These are people that fit our core values. These are people that we want to be around. These are people that we love. These are people that you just want to have in the office, or want to be on the team. Now, right seats are people who are good at their jobs. These are people with God-given skills and talent and those sort of things. And these people actually, they get it, they want it, and they have capacity to do the job. And so we give you the tools to use those guidelines. So, a lot of people ask me like, hey, Lynn, how do I hold my teams accountable and those things? Well, I'm going to give you a bunch of different ways, and we're going to hold our teams accountable to living our core values. And we're going to meet with them every quarter. We're going to go over our core values, and we're going to say, hey, here's where I think you're doing well on our core values. I think you're doing great at this one and this one. Here's where I think you could be a little bit better. Let me give you a couple examples of what that would look like. And we want to try and make sure that everybody's above the bar for our core values. And so we can hold people accountable to the core values because they are the essential set of guiding principles about who we are and and so I think they define who we are, and we got to make sure that our team members consistently exhibit those core values. And so we're going to give you the tools to use them to actually, hold your team accountable to the kind of people they need to be.
yeah, no, that's great. And I think you touched on this briefly, but I think this will help out a lot of the listeners, because I know for me it was super helpful, because it's like short and sweet and a quick way. Like if you're having any team member employee issues and you just want a quick way to think about it, can you touch a little bit more on the, like, do they get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it?
Sure. And so we got to make sure right people, right seats. They have to be both, right? And so right people, again, people that live, that consistently exhibit our core values. Right seat is, are they able to consistently excel at their job? And we ask ourselves, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have capacity to do it? Now, do they get it? Do they understand the role? Do they I don't know, do they just get it? Right. And the answer to that has got to be yes. Do they want it? Well, I can't want it for them more than they want it for them. So they got to actually want it. I can't teach them to want it. I can't pay them to want it. I can't coach them to want it. If they don't want it, it's not going to work out. And then capacity. Do they have the capacity to do the job? And by capacity, I don't just mean time. I don't mean do they have time to do the job. What I mean is, do they have the head for it? Do they have the heart for it? Sometimes do they have the stomach for it, right? And can they learn this job? Do they have the physical capability to do it? I mean, maybe it's a physical job. Can they physically do the job? Can they? And again, sometimes do they have the stomach or heart for it? So it's a little bit subjective, but some of those are not. If they don't want it, it's not going to work. If they don't get it, it's not going to work. But if they don't have the capacity to learn it, also not going to work.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Um, so I know you talked about the traction component a little bit earlier. So let's shift gears a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about what the scorecard is for people, trying to implement EOS into their, restoration company, and kind of, just a 30,000-foot view of how that works?
Sure. So the scorecard falls into one of the tools or disciplines right in the data component. So in the data component, what we want to make sure that we're doing here is we want to have a simple scorecard, dashboard, something that we can look at from a deserted island. Imagine you're on a deserted island, you're laying there in your beach chair, your cabana boy or girl brings you a frosty beverage, and they hand you a sheet of paper. That sheet of paper has a list of kind of metrics on it, or measurables that you can look at, and you can know, are we on track or are we off track, right? You got to be able to have an absolute pulse on your business. And so we're going to help you build a great leadership team scorecard that gives you a pulse on your business. I want you to think of it as like maybe your dashboard in your car. You get in your car, you put your key in, dashboard lights up, and it tells you a couple things. It tells you, like, is this car safe to drive right now? How many miles on the car? Does it need a oil changed? Are my tires inflated properly? Do I have enough gas to get where I'm going? And sometimes, is that check engine light on? Okay. That dashboard or that scorecard should give you that same kind of information about our business. And then we got to make sure that if that check engine light's on, we actually do something about it. And one of our metrics are off. We're not hitting our sales this week, or we're not hitting it 2 weeks in a row. That should be a big, giant, flashing check engine light to go, okay, sales are off 2 weeks in a row. What are we going to do about that? Because if we let that go, guess what happens to our bottom line at the end of the month? We're going to miss. And so it's a really simple scorecard that gives you a pulse on your business.
Yeah. What's the I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's not 45 metrics, right? It's EOS is about simplicity. So what's the average number? Is there an average number of
Yeah.
typically, and for everybody listening, this is kind of, most of you maybe have heard of KPIs or key performance indicators. That's kind of like, where those live on the scorecard, correct?
Yeah.
But what's like a good,
Yeah, it's been called a million things. You can call them
yeah,
KPIs, flash, whatever you want to call it. We call them measurables. And so,
yeah,
what are measurables? What are the things that we're keeping track of on a weekly basis to know whether or not we're having a good week or a bad week? And so, it's usually 5 to 15 numbers. One of the main leadership abilities that we teach you in EOS is to simplify. Quite often, if I'm doing a session and the team's talking, I'll go, whoa, whoa, hey team, are we overcomplicating this? Can we make this simpler? And sometimes simple is hard. And so I think it was Mark Twain. Well, it was attributed to Mark Twain. He's not the one who said it, but he wrote a letter one time and he said, hey, I'm sorry for the long letter. I would have written a shorter one, but I didn't have time. Right. And
yeah,
sometimes simplicity is difficult, but we want to make sure that we're leaning towards the idea of dumbing it down, making it simple, not overcomplicating things. So our scorecard is basically 5 to 15 numbers that will give us an absolute pulse on our business. And
awesome,
all you really want to know, Jamie, is like, hey, is our sales team having a good week or a bad week? Is our
yeah,
operations team having a good week or bad week? Are we having a good week or bad week in finance? Are our employees happy? Are they having a good week or a bad week? Are our customers happy? Are we having a good week or a bad week? And that's really it. It's just a simple dashboard that gives us a pulse on our business. Now, if those numbers are off, we got to be able to dig, and we got to be able to look in and know why. And so then we probably have, scorecards and metrics down in deeper into the other departments that we could go look at and see why sales is off, see why our leads are down and see why that thing. But at the leadership level, we just need to know, hey, is this thing safe to drive this week?
yeah. And I think, just to give an example for everybody listening, like, so for restoration companies, here's two that, I would consider having on there. Like, how many leads did we get this week? And then how many of those leads did we close? And that's how you get your closing rate. There's two easy, high level, simple, but good to go, good to know numbers that you guys could start putting on your scorecard to at least get this going. What so shifting gears a little bit. So for a lot of people listening are going to be leadership in a restoration company or owners themselves. I mean, is there anything, because you've worked with a lot of companies over the years, you've seen a lot of things, have a lot of experience. I mean, is there any like things that have stood out to you over the years as far as when it comes to like motivating and inspiring their people, or just maybe even getting buy-in to EOS?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And a lot of times, if this comes off as your idea, if you're like, "Hey, team, we're gonna do EOS now," and they're like, "Oh God, here goes Jamie again, another idea that he's trying to shove down our throats," and I think my team looked at me as sort of this. Gosh, I don't know. I felt like I made decisions like every single week that were different than the week before. So when I said, "Hey, let's do EOS," they were skeptical, and so I asked a professional EOS implementer to come in and actually present it to us. And number one, hearing that from a third party, and quite frankly, I won't work with a team if they don't want to do it. I've had a visionary, owner of a company say, "Hey, Lynn, we want to start EOS," and I'm like, "Ooh, that's not exactly how it works. Let's meet with your team. Let me present it to them, and if they're in, then I'm in." And so we got to make sure that we get buy-in from the team. But there's a lot of things we do, Jamie, to build great team culture and build team, sort of buy-in and motivation. One of those things is we build this as a leadership team, and we believe that as the leadership team goes, so goes the rest of the company. And so if we can get that handful of people right at the top to really understand the system and can see the vision for it, I think that's a great start. In addition to that, after every quarterly, our visionaries give a quarterly state of the company address where they get in front of the all hands on deck meeting and they walk them through, where we've been, where we are right now, where we're going. Share with them the core values again. Share with them our core target, our core focus. Share with them our 3-year picture, our 1-year plan. Share with them our quarterly rocks, the things that we're going to get done this quarter. And it's a really good sort of getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's really just a good sort of team meeting and rah rah rah. And again, I think it's important to do this every quarter. In EOS, we sort of have this meeting pulse where we believe that even the best teams, if we get them in a room today and we come up with a great plan, in about 90 days, it all kind of starts to fall apart. And so
Mm-hmm.
we got to get back together every 90 days. We build a 90-day world, and we kind of teach you how to have meetings in between those. But we get together every 90 days to take a look back at the last quarter, see how we did, congratulate you on your victories, learn from our mistakes, get back on the same page, kind of review our future and our vision again, and make sure that we're there and that's what we want. And then we build out another great quarter, a great plan for the next quarter. And so there's a lot of different things we do to help motivate teams in EOS. There's a lot of team building, a lot of culture building that happens because quite frankly, if you read Patrick Lencioni, which I do, and I love him, he talks a lot about being both healthy and smart. A lot of teams focus on being smart, and that's the things that you do. That's how we sell, and that's how we close deals, and that's how we, all those things that kind of you do in your business. And they spend very little time, which is very precious time, on being healthy, which is being open and honest and creating great culture. So you got to have both of those things.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100%. And I think I can confirm, I think the quarterly, meetings and the stand-ups is a perfect, like, yeah, you don't need to do a State of the Union address every week, but you probably don't need to do it once a year either. I think the quarterly is perfect because it's, yeah, you're right. Typically towards the end of the quarter, things start feeling a little messier, a little like, and it's like, hey, we need a good reset. And I think EOS forces you like, hey, quarterly meetings. Let's block some time to do this. Let's all get on the same page. Where are we going? What do we get done? What needs to be, get done? What projects, rocks do we need to set? It just keeps everything aligned in a simple way too, because this stuff can get way complicated if you don't. But I think that's one thing I like about EOS is it's pretty simple, and we've probably all heard the, saying simple scale, right? I'm kind of a believer in that. So if someone wanted to start implementing EOS into their restoration company, like what's kind of like the step one or starting?
Yeah, certainly. If there's a couple of ways to implement EOS, you can certainly self-implement, and in that case, I would suggest you read the book Traction. Possibly read the book Get a Grip if you're kind of more of a visionary and want to hear the story or the fable of EOS. Um, talk to an EOS implementer. Any one of us will come in to your company. We'll do a 90-minute meeting. We'll learn about you. You'll learn about us. We'll show you all of the EOS tools, and then we'll show you what the process looks like. And then you make a decision. Are we going to self-implement this? We can do this on our own, or do we go with a professional, certified, or expert EOS implementer? But starting with the book Traction, I think, is a great place. And again, I think Get a Grip's a great book for visionaries. Now, we talk about the 80-20 a lot. We talk about simplifying. There are a handful, we call them the EOS foundational tools, of things that you really want to put in place. That's your vision traction organizer. Your VTO is basically, it's a 2-page business plan. It's 8 simple questions that you need to answer together as a leadership team. We build out your accountability chart, and that's really about kind of designing and developing what your company needs to look like 6 to 12 months from now. And we start putting the right people in the right seats. We map out all the roles and responsibilities of everybody on the team. Set a set of rocks, which are your 90-day biggest business priorities. You're gonna have a great scorecard, 5 to 15 numbers to give you a pulse on your business. And then weekly, you're going to get in and you're going to have a level 10 meeting. And the reason we call it a level 10 meeting is because we found that when we ask people to describe their meetings and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, most people tell us their meetings are 3s or 4s. And so we've developed a meeting agenda and a level 10 meeting agenda and a structure for this meeting, that over time this is going to become the most important part of your week, and you're going to start having consistently level 9 and level 10 meetings every single week. So those are the foundational tools. I would say if you're going to do this yourself, get that in place. Don't worry about anything fancy. Just do the 80-20, get that foundation in place. But if you did want to work with an implementer, there's me and 800 of my closest friends who are implementers. I'd love to talk with you. If I'm not a great fit for you, I can certainly connect you with someone who is a perfect fit, and you go from there.
Yeah, and if anybody listening, I can reach out to Restoration Marketing Group. I can connect you with Lynn, or if they want to just look you up online, like what's the easiest way for them to get in touch with you?
I'm pretty easy to find. I think I'm the only Lyn Askin on the planet. So I think if you were to type Lyn Askin in Google or wherever, you'd find my Facebook page, my LinkedIn page, you can connect with me through any of those social media platforms. You go to lynaskin.com, send me a message. You can go to EOS Worldwide and go to the implementer directory and search for me. My name's Lyn Askin. I live in South Louisiana. I live in Lafayette, Louisiana. But I travel for clients, and we spend a lot of time in session rooms, and I love what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. A fellow Southern boy. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there today, guys. And just a quick recap on the books you mentioned. Traction is a good one. Get a Grip is a good one. And I think another one that I've listened to on Audible that was great is Rocket Fuel. Talks more about the visionary integrator thing. So if anybody wants to learn more about that, that's a great book to get a little bit more clarity on those roles.
There's 7 or 8 books in the EOS library now. Obviously, Traction's the manual. Get a Grip's kind of the fable of the story of EOS. Rocket Fuel, like you said, is great to describe that visionary integrator duo and how that relationship works. There's one called Process that talks about kind of getting the right things done the best way every time. There's one on people, and those books just keep coming out. For if you do want to implement EOS and you want to have a really simple way to describe it to your team, there's a book called What the Heck is EOS? It's small and it's really simple for them to get a good understanding of what they're up against or what they're going into.
Yeah, no, you actually dropped some I haven't heard of yet. So I might do some. I've listened to a good chunk of them, but not all of them yet. I might pick a few.
Probably some that I missed. We got the EOS Life, we got Get a Grip, Rocket Fuel, How to Be a Great Boss is another great book in the EOS library. And then of course we could get into Lencioni and talk about the 5 dysfunctions of a team and sort of things. But yeah, good.
Maybe I'll get you back on here one day. We'll go down that path.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining this episode of the Restoration Success Show. We'll see you on the next one. Lynn, appreciate your time, sir. And
My,
we'll
my
wrap
pleasure.
it up here.
My pleasure. So much fun. Great talking to you always. You've been a great friend for a long time, and it's just a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, likewise, my friend.